Welcome everyone to the Omniverse of Nick and part 11 to What If Cliffjumper Survived. Now, before we get into today's episode, be sure, as always, to smash that like button, subscribe to the Omniverse of Nick, and comment future requests for stories that you want to see appear here on the channel, and just your favorite part of the stories, or just anything on the channel in particular. With all that out of the way, once you get all that done and stuff, we shall get into today's episode, leaving off with Wheeljack's plan to take out Project Damocles and Makeshift, Soundwave, same difference. And he begins to tell the plan to Bulkhead on the comlink. He says that if they really want to do this, he's got a plan, but it might end up backfiring or just, ending up with him terminated too. He plans to use his grenades and his abilities to his fullest, get Makeshift lured right to Damocles, and then fire the grenades and everything he's got, taking them both out. Bulkhead just over the comlink says, "No, that is a bad idea because it could very well easily backfire, and even if it works, he doesn't want to lose Wheeljack," but Wheeljack's not listening because we all know about Wheeljack and being him. So he goes through the plan, unsheaths his blades, prepares his grenades, hey, that rhymed, and prepares to enact the plan. But Smokescreen is the first to be the one to, besides Bulkhead, take action in helping with the plan and just trying to halt it as much as possible to keep Wheeljack from dying. He jumps out of the ship and has the phase shifter, obviously. Makeshift catches notice of this and prepares to fire the ion blaster at Smokescreen, but this opens him up. Wheeljack prepares a grenade, fires it, and the bomb explodes right at Makeshift in the air, kind of. They're not that high up, but it actually, the explosion injures Makeshift to a great deal and tears off the screen, which was Soundwave/Makeshift's face. He goes in forward to attack Wheeljack, but Wheeljack just prepares another grenade, throws it, and then this time, for extra effect, knowing what it can do, especially against the likes of Dreadwing, prepares his blaster and then shoots the grenade, especially like what he did with the Insecticons whenever Makeshift was revealed alive in the first place, and just in canon. And this time, we get an even bigger explosion, and once the smoke clears, Makeshift is gravely injured, and now we see his entire face. Now, I know, there's going to be millions and millions of comments, maybe, saying that, even if this was Makeshift Soundwave and not actually Soundwave, how do you know that he would have a face? Well, few things. One, it was never revealed because Soundwave's face was always cracked, but never actually fully destroyed. And this is Makeshift, so we're allowed to throw in a little T-bone there. So, Anyways, Makeshift now unleashes his laser beak to attack, but Wheeljack just throws one of his blades and disables Makeshift's laser beak. And now, Makeshift Soundwave, even if his face is completely off in the screen and everything, he is now getting more and more used to Soundwave's whole thing and begins to fight for real. But Bumblebee comes in for the save, pushing past Wheeljack and allowing him the chance to recover and fully make sure Damocles is offline, because the explosions did catch Damocles in the process. So there was very well good with that, even if it wasn't known at the time. It mainly was targeted at Makeshift. But while Wheeljack is recovering and making sure Damocles is permanently offline, this is the perfect chance for Silas, the Insecticons, and Knockout to strike, especially with Wheeljack being decently injured. But Smokescreen comes in for the save with the phase shifter, allowing Wheeljack some time to recover and fend off at least the cons and Insecticons that he would be able to with his strength, because he would expend a lot of strength from what he did. Meanwhile, Bumblebee is injured fighting the likes of Makeshift Soundwave, who, even if his face is torn and everything, is beginning to show off more and more what made Soundwave so formidable. Especially since it's Makeshift, he's actually been given a chance to shine. And now, Silas, Breakdown, whatever the frick, since there's a lot of body swapping and everything like that, just laughs at the Autobots, especially Bulkhead and the others, saying that there's nothing they can do even if Damocles is shut off, and that they should have learned not to interfere in his operations. And this just angers Bulkhead. One, because it's, once again, Breakdown's body, and two, just because of everything that's happening. But Silas prepares to fire at all of them, but Smokescreen comes in for the save with the phase shifter. Makeshift at this point is noticing more and more how annoying that phase shifter is to what has been happening, but Bumblebee is still in this and fires at Makeshift. And at this point, Makeshift might be injured to a good point and everything with the explosions and Bumblebee fighting him and all that, and no Laserbeak, but he's also getting more familiar with Soundwave's body and abilities, and he's getting angry. So he prepares the cords and antennas that Soundwave would use, except they're pincers, like swords, and they're targeting straight for Bumblebee. But Wheeljack just goes into car mode with all of his strength, pushes Bumblebee out of the way, and he takes the shot with both sides of his body where his shoulders are being pierced through by Makeshift. Yeah, I'm killing off a second Autobot, which is something the original series didn't do. This angers Bumblebee so much that, yeah, if Makeshift wasn't done before, oh, he's certainly done now. He is utterly and completely torn apart by Bumblebee. And yeah, that's the end of Makeshift, Soundwave, and just Soundwave. Bulkhead sees his wrecker partner terminated and dying, and he just knocks Silas out. And with more and more of his anger showing, especially with how much Wheeljack meant to him, he doesn't stop. Oh no, he does not stop. He keeps on pounding and pounding and pounding Silas into a bloody pulp, not even stopping for a sec. It's kind of like what he did to clone Starscream, except much, much worse. But then he is told to and forced to stop by Optimus, who has the Star Saber, and Cliff and RC, who have also come in. And the three of them, as well as all of the other Autobots, have to process that even though they got the relic, took out Damocles, and Makeshift, Soundwave, and just both of them are gone, they just lost another bot, Wheeljack. And this has hit Bulkhead the most, obviously, and he just looks at Optimus and everything, who told him to stop, and says, "Why should I stop? Jackie is dead." And Bulkhead's beginning to get angrier and angrier at all of them, saying, basically turning on a like synthetic Ratchet kind of feel, saying that they should have killed Megatron when they had the chance, and he's gonna kill all the Decepticons right now. But he then gets slapped in the back of his face by Optimus, saying for him to not be a fool, because he knows how much Wheeljack meant to him and everything, but how much Wheeljack meant to him and Ratchet meant equally, if not much more so, to not only Optimus, but the entire team. It's what drove them to get this far. And if Bulkhead just up and goes after the entire rest of the Decepticons, he won't fare any better than Wheeljack did. Ratchet was just snuffed, but Wheeljack, he was a fighter and he still died. And he just goes off on Bulkhead, which surprises everyone, but to be honest, Optimus hitting Bulkhead and getting this mad, he never really got this mad at all in Prime. And as much as he's out of line, you gotta think of Ratchet dying in this story and then look back at the live action movies, and you gotta think that even if he would be softer here, it's literally how he would act. Silas gets up very, 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 very beaten and just looks to see Optimus and pretty much everyone, including Bulkhead, who really just wants to kill him, arm their weapons straight at him, with him being the only one left there, and saying to stand down and never return. Because Optimus is just as mad, but Bulkhead's the most mad out of everyone here. But Silas just smirks at this, saying that Damocles might have been a failure, and they may have lost a good amount of forces, but the job has ultimately been done. And he says that they should have never messed with Silas's operations. And then he just leaves. Back at the Nemesis, Megatron, Dreadwing, and all the other cons who had left are back on the ship to see Silas return, but no makeshift, and just Knockout, and no other cons or Insecticons, barely. Just Knockout and him. And he lays on to Megatron the news about Makeshift Soundwave's death, and Megatron is instantly caught on to this and just looks at Silas with the utmost anger and surprise in his eyes. And because Megatron was the detailing of how mad and like emotions that they portrayed on Megatron in the show were top notch, and it would even show here. And he's thinking about just putting him on Knockout's table like he did in canon, just for him saying this, and that Damocles is gone. But Silas turns the mood around right quick, knowing that this would be Megatron's reaction, saying that even though Damocles failed and Makeshift Soundwave, technically the entire whole of his surveillance chief, is now completely gone with no backup to speak of, the damage was still very much done in the death of Wheeljack, who the Insecticon leader Hardshell failed to kill. And even though Megatron is still very enraged that he now definitely will never have a surveillance chief again, and they lost a good amount of forces along with Damocles actually proving more useful and that turning up to be nothing, he is now actually very much in a better mood because of the death of a second Autobot. And he actually praises Silas for this while lambasting him. Meanwhile, at the base, everyone is lamenting the deaths that have just happened, especially Bulkhead more than anyone there. Because not only have we lost one bot in this continuity, but we lost two, and they weren't even original casualties. Ratchet and Wheeljack are the two casualties, and this is really hitting Bulkhead and just everyone really hard. And RC, she can really touch upon this with Bulkhead because of her loss of Tailgate and her knowing how much Ratchet meant to the entire team and how much Wheeljack meant to Bulkhead. But she turns it around or tries to cheer up Bulkhead, saying that even with all this, they're all still here. Optimus is still here. They just need to keep going. And they're all needing to support each other with these losses. But Bulkhead says he doesn't know how he can go on. He just wants to get it all done. Bulkhead is thoroughly tired of losing people, and he just wanted to go through with what he said and just go to the warship, take them all down. Cliffjumper says, as well as he's thought about Starscream and doing all that himself many, 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 many times, especially after Ratchet and him being partly responsible because him and Optimus just letting Starscream in after that and all that, he says that going to the warship just blindly alone, blinded by rage, Optimus is right. They need to do this and keep their heads on firm. They need to do what they've been doing this entire time. Stick together. And Smokescreen even says he feels partly to blame. He should have used the phase shifter more. He should have freaking done more with the phase shifter, and that helped them, but he just feels that he's partly to blame because he feels he didn't do enough. and this actually snaps Bulkhead out of most of his rage, and he lets Smokescreen know because this surprises him a lot, and he lets him know that he did probably the most with that phase shifter. It's nobody's fault here that Wheeljack or Ratchet isn't with them today. It's the Khan's fault, and as much as he's blinded by rage, he hates to admit it, but he really can't do anything. They all have to wait and keep together as they have been, and keep their heads on straight. Soon enough, after some time passes, Optimus with the Star Saber talks to Alpha Trion and learns the location of, unbeknownst to them, the Omega Keys. And Megatron, now with no surveillance chief and their forces down, even with 2 bots down, still gets Liege Maximo's arm and the Dark Star Saber, unbeknownst to the Autobots. RC and Smokescreen go on the mission to get the first Omega Key, which they don't know what it is yet, and Cliff, obviously, goes along too because, yeah, RC. And the entrance to the Dark Star Saber is brought into the fold. Now, we then get the Smokescreen whole fake out thing with the phase shifter, everybody thinking that he died there, and Cliff is there with RC, and they're not going to let Megatron get the key here, and this, if anything, just motivates them to literally go and kill Megatron. Cliff runs right up to Megatron, elbows the Dark Star Saber out of his hand, which lands on the ground, but Megatron, he just uppercuts Cliffjumper thinking he's gonna get him away, but Cliffjumper just retaliates by back hitting him straight in the face. Cliff is fueled by rage, and he actually back hits Megatron into a flurry of blaster fire from RC. And then blaster fire, very surprising to Cliff and RC, brought in also by Smokescreen, who we obviously know faked out his death because of the whole phase shifter. It's not that he faked it out, but, it was thought to be that way. Then we see that he has the Omega Key also. And Cliff says that even though they're doing good against Megatron, they can't pull a Bulk here and just get themselves blinded by rage since Smoke is obviously alive. And they go to retreat and bring back the key. Megatron tries to go after them, but they get away. And Megatron has the whole monologue about them running and having the power to tear the world apart, except this time it's different because he didn't break Optimus's Star Saber, so Optimus didn't have to have it repaired. And as for Knockout going to get the second key with the Ion Blaster, yeah, that isn't happening here. But Bumblebee and RC are still going after the key with their group, and Cliff, need I say more, is with RC, is going along also. But instead of Knockout, it's Dreadwing who goes after that specific key. He went after the third one, but he's actually going after the second one because of Silas's later pretty much fold into the Decepticons and the fact that he's still around, and it's just timing of it all making Dreadwing the next to get the key. And, all that stuff. Now, we get a similar scene and iconic scene from the video game Transformers Prime, and very poetic to Bumblebee killing Skyquake with Bumblebee fighting Dreadwing while Cliff and RC get the key. Dreadwing, seeing that Bumblebee is not an easy pickings for him, tries to go for his explosives whenever his sword and blaster don't do anything. But Bumblebee just straight up knocks him down, forcing the explosions to just go everywhere, and the whole place surrounded by fire, and Bumblebee and everyone just gets the key and books it. Meanwhile, Megatron is now perturbed because even though it seems like him and the bots are on equal footing with losses, the Decepticons have a little bit more, And it's like Megatron's on a win-lose kind of attitude battle with himself over the whole ordeal, especially with Starscream still out there. And the bots and cons know this about Starscream too. But he continues being, him with convincing himself that the bots will fall, considering they lost 2 of their own. This is where we would get the scene where Starscream begins to mess with the red energon, and then we would get the 3rd key with Bulkhead, Smokescreen, and the whole Dreadwing fight, which Dreadwing just fought here, so that's obviously not going to happen. But another thing isn't going to be the same. Starscream, given more time being by himself and having more time, especially with the red energon, actually has enough for a full-on container, which means he has way more red energon than he did before. What will he do with this, especially knowing what he did with the synthetic energon? And could this lead to Starscream being even more potent in this already blazing story with him and Cliff and the rest of the story?
Why am I asking you all these questions?
Find out in the next episode on the Omniverse of Nick.